Welcome back, guys. Okay, so today's lesson is basically going to be on the basics of writing. If you guys have ever been told that you're not a writer, then this video is definitely for you guys. So my name is Mona. I'm an ex-editorial assistant. I've written for a lot of magazines. I also delved into communications and content marketing. I do a lot of luxury marketing, and that includes writing for websites and different socials and different platforms. So I'd love to share some of my experience and some of my knowledge with you guys in this series where I teach you guys how to write. Some of these tips are things that I've learned over the years as a writer, and some of them as a journalist and an editorial assistant writing for magazines and different platforms. Take some of the knowledge and apply that to whatever you're writing for. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the core basics. So the core basics are things like spelling, grammar, punctuation, sentence length, things like that. It's basic stuff that you learn in English class when you're studying English, but I'm gonna add some elements that I learned from studying English literature, so you actually analyze books in a very interesting way, and I think it helps you understand specific punctuation and grammar and specific ways of writing, specifically for sentence length. For example, if you're writing a book and it's an intense scene, usually writers will prefer to write short sentences so you can get the impact of the scene. So short, quick, snappy sentences usually create tension, and that then leads to the reader feeling like something is going to happen. There's anticipation is created, and so small things like that can be used really easily to level up your writing, but also create an interesting way of writing. It's not just general long sentences describing what's happening or describing the intense scene. The reader actually feels the intensity and the anticipation. So that's the main difference when it comes to writing a really good book and writing just a general book, which is cozy to read. But when you're going into details with the sentence structure or punctuation or grammar and using specific kind of words and really playing with the length of sentences, it usually creates a different kind of vibe. The reader is really intelligent, and the reader will always pick up these things. There's so many examples like that, using specific vocabulary to create anger. There's an aspect of show, don't tell. Now, this aspect of show, don't tell is something that can be applied to novels. It can be applied to brands as well when you're storytelling. So you want to show why your brand is really good. For example, don't just write that the brand is sustainable. Just write that we employ this many people, the money that we make goes back to the community, this is how it benefits the community. In that way, you're actually showing your readers and your audiences and your buyers and your consumers that there's an actual impact. Like, they can see the impact by reading. They don't just know that it's sustainable, because sustainable can mean many things. So you can also use this in a novel. I would say you can use this both when you're telling a brand story and describing your product, as well as in your novel as writing. And it's also something that is probably a really good storytelling technique for your article. If you're writing an article, if you're writing a digital feature, if you're writing a print feature, show, not tell is probably one of the key core elements that you want to think about when it comes to storytelling. I would suggest that you definitely take advantage of that. Now, this is specifically writing skills for books. A lot of the books that I've read recently, there's two point of views. So you see the story from the girl's point of view, and then you see the story from the guy's point of view, and that's really interesting, and it makes it multi-dimensional, and it makes it much more exciting because you see two people's point of views, and you also get a little bit of the brother's point of view, and then there's a few other characters, but the main storytelling is from two people's heads. And it's really important when you're doing any storytelling with any novels or any other books to show whose point of view are you in, because I think that's what creates the energy of the book, and it just makes it much more interesting. I think just as a novel, as a reader, it makes it interesting. It's really cool to have two different perspectives. You make sure that you know whose head you're in, so that would be a really good element to think about when you're writing your first novel. Which then actually leads into something really, really important, because I personally think this can make or break a book, which is dialogue. So you have to make sure that the dialogue between characters, the dialogue between characters' head and themselves, their thoughts and them, those dialogues need to be realistic. If they're not realistic and they feel awkward or weird, then I personally think that it can make and break a book. For example, if there's a love story that I'm reading and the dialogue is really awkward, I would feel the chemistry between the two characters. The dialogue in Love Hypothesis is actually really good. So that's one of the books that I currently read, which I think has really good dialogue in it. So Laurie Gilmore, it's one of the reasons why I actually love her books, is she makes really realistic characters. Their interactions seem very genuine, and their personalities, the way that she describes their personalities, is actually how their dialogue is with each other and with other characters. And that's something that I find really, really good. And I think it's really difficult for authors and writers in general to create good dialogue. You have to have good relationships in life to actually create good dialogue. I mean, I personally think that obviously it can be wrong, but I think generally quite outgoing probably know how conversations go. But this is something that I think writers usually forget. But the next thing is something that everybody learns, but this is something that I still struggle with. Active or passive voice. I can sometimes get confused with that. I still get confused with that, and I've been writing for many years, and I've been writing since I was a kid. I've been reading since I was a kid, and this is something that I find genuinely very confusing. So this is something worth focusing on. So the active voice is when the doer comes first. For example, the dog chased the cat. Passive voice is the cat was chased by the dog, so it's the other way around. You see this a lot in books. So yeah, that is something that you can use to create a little more drama and a little more interest in your writing. I'm still learning a lot about it. I think this is something worth focusing on if you're thinking about writing a novel or a book. Okay, now that we have the core basics, I'm going to talk to you about the other thing that's really important is editing. Now, editing is just really, really important in general. And as writers, as journalists, you know that editing is make or break. As an editorial assistant, I edited a lot of articles. I would say that you want to spend at least half the amount of time that you've spent writing the book just editing the book. I think editing is something that is always overlooked, but is probably one of the best ways to actually take your novel from good to great. Have multiple people read your book and give you some feedback, because that always helps with editing process. I used to do that with my articles. I used to get people to read my features and tell me what they think. Tell me about what's going on, what are their comments, and so I basically make sure that I get a lot of feedback and I read everything multiple times. So make sure you don't overlook the editing process of whatever you're doing, whatever writing, whether it's a book, whether it's brand story, whether it's content creation. Just make sure that you're editing everything to the best of your abilities. Okay, last but not least, we're going to talk a little about some exercises. I think the best way to practice all of this obviously is to write. I currently am on a schedule where I give myself 4 hours every week to continue on my book that I'm writing. That is probably the best way to practice your writing, learn more about it. One of the things that really helped me, this is sort of an exercise that you guys can do after this video. I described an object and I did that on multiple days and edit it and make it better. And so it actually really helped me focus and describe that one thing, and I would describe it in different ways. So I would active voice, then I would use passive voice, and just using one paragraph but changing it made me understand everything a bit more. So yeah, that's an exercise that you guys can try out, where you just pick an object, or you can pick a feeling, or you can pick a day and describe that. Just pick anything and just do a short paragraph, describe it, and then kind of edit it by changing the core elements. Okay, if you guys enjoyed this video, watch this other video which is linked somewhere around the screen. I think it might be down here. And it basically goes deeper into developing writing skills and the core basics. So I think you'll enjoy that.